I was born and raised in Iran, in the southwest of Iran, right around the Persian Gulf area.
Yes.
And as a child, I grew up in a middle-class Muslim home. My grandfather, God bless his soul, he was an imam.
And so your grandfather was an imam?
Yes. He was an
he's
imam.
a religious man.
Yes.
Right.
We were raised, as we say, we were raised in the mosque.
Yes.
That's what we use, We
right.
were raised in the mosque because it was literally across the street from our house.
All right.
And my father was a very successful businessman, and I had 7 brothers and sisters.
Yes.
And we grew up as Muslims. I remember as a little boy, I would line up behind my...
So you believe in big families?
Oh, yes, yes. I still believe in big families.
All right.
And we used to line up behind my father, grandfather, my older brother.
Yes.
And early in the morning before the sunrise, Azan would come on, and we would pray. And we were raised very strict.
The Adhan is the call for prayer.
Yes.
In English. All right.
Call in prayer.
All right.
Thank you for reminding me that it's an English-speaking program.
All right.
However, so I grew up in that setting in Iran, in the peaceful time of the nation of Iran, and that was my childhood. And as I grew up, I done well in school. I got good grades, and
this is you left elementary school and you went to the secondary school after that.
I finished 12 years of what we call madrasa.
Madrasa
school. And along we had always studied Quran, and we followed the 5 prayers daily by Shia Muslims. And
so your background is Shia Muslim?
Yes,
all right.
As a Shia Muslim. And to tell you the truth, until I came to the United States, I never knew a Christian person. I never met one. I never seen a Bible.
Your dad was religious too?
Yes.
Your mom was religious?
Oh, yes.
Your whole family was surrounded with
all religious,
the Shia belief in Islam?
Yes. And my sisters and my mother, they all wear what we call chador in Iran.
Chador,
Arabic would be the hijab. Yes. And we were respected family in the community for generations. And so my father was impressed with my ability in school because I've done very well.
So you're a smart kid.
Well, yes, I say smart in study, but
all right.
But nevertheless, I always wanted to further my education.
Yes,
I wanted to do more, and after high school, I wanted to.
So, what was your age in that era? I mean, from the baby till the high school, what was your age exactly?
I was about
what?
Yeah, when I got out of high school, I was about 18 years old.
18 years old. So you're a young man. Okay.
Yes, I'm a young man, and I had a vision of myself wanting to go to the universities and study further. And when I was 18 years old.
You didn't feel that you want to do something for Islam, or you just want to be educated first? That's what your feeling was.
At that time, in Iran was a different place.
Yes, it was
much different.
Under the Shah, I believe.
Okay. It was under the Shah.
So it's important for the people to know that this is during the days of the Shah, before the revolution. All right.
Before the revolution.
Because we'll be speaking about after the revolution.
Yes.
All right.
That's what the title is, From Revolution to Revelation.
Yes, our viewers, our title for this evening, From Revolution to Revelation. From Revolution to Revelation. That's our title. Go ahead, Mehran.
And I wanted to further my education. But as I grew up, my grandfather has always installed in our mind that you are Muslim.
Before anything else.
Before anything else. When you are Muslim, wherever you go, you have to conduct yourself as a well-mannered, faithful Muslim. So as a Muslim, I didn't grow up thinking that I have to do something for Islam because I was already doing it.
Yeah, so you don't need it.
I was already setting the example. I was doing my prayers, my zakat, my giving. I conducted myself as an educated Muslim. In Iran, it's important to be an educated Muslim.
Wow.
It's very important. At the time of Shah, because the world was changing and we were to adjust with it, but yet still be Muslim and practice Islam.
Let me ask you a question. In this era of the Shah, we heard a lot, it was corrupt, but when I compare it with today, I mean, there is no even comparison with that percentage. Is that what's really the corrupt? Or I felt that Iran in that era it was a very strong country and it had a strong army and a rich country it was. So I don't understand it's corrupt or rich or was good or not. Or,
Well,
can you shed the light on that?
I'd be glad to. I guess if you ask different people of different classes,
Yes.
you might get different answers. But I was from the middle class, so I was in the majority of the country.
But so you were well-to-do if you're a middle class.
Yes,
I mean, okay.
yes, we were well-to-do. And we could see that advances that Shah brought to Iran.
Yes.
The Shah, before Shah, 60+% of Iranians were illiterate.
Wow. Wow.
And education came in, and with that came in civilization. It changed things. However, Shah brought many things that were to us were new, but yet they were freedom. The system
You have more freedom than today.
Oh yes.
Okay.
Oh yes.
Right.
Shah himself was not a religious man.
All right.
You understand? He was more secular.
All right.
He respected Islam, but he was tolerant of it to a certain point.
Yes.
Because if you want to bring him to today's date, in America, the language would be he wanted separation of church and of mosque and state.
And religion.
That's what he wanted. He was trying to accomplish that.
Yes.
He was trying to bind with Western world in order to gain more power militarily. Iran was the fourth powerful naval military in the world.
In the Middle East,
Yes,
it was also.
and the economy was blooming in 70s. Why? Iranian people were going to Europe and they were buying Volvo, Mercedes-Benz and driving them back to Iran. They had houses in Europe, in America, and houses in Iran.
So it wasn't bad.
Oh, the economy was the best has ever been.
Yes, yes.
The only problem was that Shah was not tolerant of those who spoke against him.
Yeah, okay.
And that caused some of the more zealous Muslims to be very upset because they couldn't speak up, and if they did, they were persecuted. But of course, that was the crux of the problem. However, after he left, and in the last 30 years, the stories you hear from Iran, and I've been to Iran 3 times in these last few years, if I may so say, it makes Shah look like a Sunday school teacher.
Wow.
He looked like a saint compared to today. The corruption used to be at the top.
Wow.
You know, if you wanted to get somewhere, you bribe the top guy in charge. Now the corruption starts from the very bottom. If you want to get something done, you have to start from the bottom and bribe and go all the way to the
We
top.
call it bakshish in Arabic. Give money to...
Reshve in Farsi.
Rashwa, yeah.
Yeah,
Rashwa
there we
in
go. We have it in common.
Yeah,
Reshve in Farsi. So let me give you an example.
Yes.
I was at airport, and when I got to Iran back in 2003,
All right.
and my luggage was somehow lost temporarily, and they told me to come back and get them. And I had all kinds of gifts for the family. You know how we are. We go with a whole bunch of luggage, and I went back to get them the next day. They told me it was there, but the guy had to have me go in the back room, give a little reshve, give it a bribery. But then I said, okay, is it ready? Is it ready to go? Because my brothers warned me that you've been in the United States for a while. Things have changed. So, don't fight the system. Just give him the reshve. Just give him the bribe.
Give him the money he needs so can get it.
Yeah, so I did. I thought, well, I'm out of here. But no. He took me to another guy, little office, his boss. And the guy talked to me and a little bit and said, well, I don't know where they're at exactly, but we could find them. But if you need them quickly, we could always work something out, And so I had to give him a little bit. And then I went to the third guy. And this is a very simple example. It used to be one man you just bribed and you got your stuff and it was respectful. Now it was much more difficult and more complicated.
What if you're coming here and don't have much change in your pocket? What are you going to do? There's an ATM there?
They think if you're from America, you're rich.
Oh, you're...
So, yeah, you're in trouble.
Your pockets are full.
Yes, they think you have dollars.
All right.
And they want dollars,
Okay.
too, if you have rich, they want dollars.
All right. So let's get back now to your upbringing and your dad and your grandfather is a religious man. He's a leader of the mosque, and you've been taught you are a Muslim, you're going to stay Muslim, and you thought that you are doing Islam something good because you are trying to be a good Muslim in your era. But you like to be educated. And I know many Iranian education, they are proud. There's engineers, there's doctors, there's well-to-do Iranian here in the United States even. But when the revolution came, they kicked them out. Why?
Well, the
don't like-
revolution, yes, the revolution was designed to do away with any kind of education and westernization. And in a sense, it set us back. I say
Yes.
set us back to 900 years.
Wow.
And the illiteracy rate went back down again. It used to be that only in the villages outside, in the countryside, you find people that were illiterate. Even then, they had some teachers.
Yes.
They had some. Even the mullahs in those areas could read and write, and they were the teachers. But now, when you go, I went back to Iran. I was really surprised. Yes, in a big city, there are a lot of people who are educated.
Yes.
But there are millions who don't live in a big city who are back to where it used to be
Back to the woods.
before 30 years ago. And of course, the women. When I was in Iran, I was raised under Shah. I remember I was a child when Shah outlawed chador. And his reasoning was there was a lot of crime and
You're
crime
hidden-
against
you're
humanity.
disguised, yeah.
Disguised under the chador. So, but I believe he wanted to have women free. And so women had a lot more freedom. They were driving. My sisters, if they didn't want to wear the hijab, they didn't have to. But they did because of my grandfather, respecting him and his name.
Religious background.
Yes. However, there were many people who didn't have to wear hijab, and you were not judged by it. When I went in Iran, I went to renew my passport in a government building. It was in September. It was over 100 degrees.
This is 2000.
2000. This was back in first time 1997.
Oh, all right. Okay.
I had to go in there to renew my passport, and so I went to go in there, and I had a short sleeve shirt. It was summer. It was 100 degrees out.
Wow.
And the guard at the door, a young man, couldn't be more than 20, pointed a machine gun in my chest.
Wow.
Yeah, and asked me if do you think you're going to go in the Islamic building looking like that? And I thought, what do you mean looking like that? He says, your arms are showing. He says, what are you trying to do? Impress the women? Spoke to me in that manner.
Wow. Wow.
Okay, and I realized that they have gone back. So a short sleeve
Welcome back.
shirt was, so if they did that to a man, what would they do to a woman? So of course I had a lot of stories, my families, friends, and we knew in Iran who have been suffered severely with not being covered.
Because of their appearance.
Oh yes, the stories are so many.
All right. So now I'm going to move forward. You're 18. You finished your high school.
Yes.
And now you're ready to get more education.
Yes, I was ready to get more education, and I worked for my dad for 2 years after that.
And your dad has a business?
Yes,
or-
he had good business, and I worked for him and for 2 years, and of course, I didn't want any salary for it. I just, he was
Oh,
my
your
father.
dad, your family, yeah.
And then after 2 years, I took some exams, and he said, well, I'll tell you what, if you want a further education, I'm willing to support you, and you can go to any country you want to get your education.
Great, that's great.
And at that time, we had a good friend whose son was in the United States.
Yes.
He's been here a few years, and I thought, well, I want to go to the United States then.
Wow.
I want to learn English, and I want to get my education. I want to come back to Iran, and I want to work and live in Iran.
Yes.
My dream was to go back. I loved Iran. It was a wonderful place. We had pretty much freedom in a capitalism system. And it was a place that you with some education and knowing English language well, you could excel, and you could
You'll be
really
successful
get
man there.
Yes,
Okay.
you could. Because I had many people who had come back, and we've seen them, and they had nice positions in the government. So I agreed. I said, okay, that'd be great. I want to go to the United States. And that's when I left. However,
That was like 20.
this was 1979.
But you were 20 years old, 21, something like that?
Yes, I was 20 years old.
All right.
In 1979, and things were changing. We could see some group of people, more fanatic Islamic groups, and I had cousins that were in them with them. They were trying to create some problems for Shah and against the government, and we could see they would pull up by some banks or some American-backed business, and they would break the glass and do some vandalism and stuff. It began that I remember those days very well. But I thought, well, this will pass.
Yeah.
So that was back in 1979, and I left in February of 1979.
February 1979.
Little I knew that the day I left and flew from Iran, landed in Amsterdam and then to Chicago, the same day Ayatollah Khomeini
Took over.
entered Iran.
So that just the next day right away. Wow.
Right that day.
Yeah. So tell me, what did your father advise you before you leave, and he has his blessings on you to go? For sure, he's a dad. He wants the best for his son, and he
That's a very good.
maybe he will give you some advice. And
Yes, it is a very good. It's a good question. First of all, my grandfather, he was a imam. He was educated imam, and he told me that you're going to the United States. He says, that's the largest Christian nation in the world. Everybody's Christian in that country.
yes,
And he says, I want you to conduct yourself as a Muslim so you can influence them and win them over
wow.
by being a good Muslim.
So you think that's in the mind of every Muslim, that this Western world has to be turned to Islam?
Yes, it was no secret.
Yes.
I always thought wherever I go, my job was to influence people
To bring
for
them to
Islam,
Islam.
to bring them to Islam. We're all missionaries. We were all missionaries in Islam.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
we were always taught that. It was never
We call it in Arabic da'wah. That's what the name is? Da'wah. Da'wah
To-
al-Islamiyya.
okay to
Yeah.
invite.
Yeah,
Da'wat.
to Islam. So, yeah.
So that was very norm. It wasn't really anything that I had to receive a calling or anything.
This
in
is your
particular.
duty.
This was my duty.
Yes.
And so he told me to conduct yourself as a good Muslim. You're an example from us, from here to them. And then, of course, my father, we are at the airport now. And you know how it is over there. All the family members are there. The friends are there. Hundreds of people.
Kissing your
Kissing
cheeks
you,
and
giving
having
you
you
hugs, yes. And you're about ready to get at the gate. And my father says to me, now, listen, son, don't ever forget where you come from. Ever forget that. And I want you to remember that United States and people in America have done some of the greatest thing. These people put a man in the moon. That's what he said. There is so much there that you can learn. But with that freedom comes a lot of corruption. I don't want you to get involved with alcohol, drugs, and fornications and all this stuff. I want you to leave the bad stuff behind and bring out all the good things that America has to offer
to you.
and bring that back. I said, well, good, that's two advice. But it's always the third one. And my father, in the last breath and last seconds before I leave, he says, and son, don't forget, don't you ever eat pork. That was his last advice to me as I'm leaving. And of course, we know as a Muslim how important it is. So it wasn't surprising.
So your ticket was taking you from Tehran to Amsterdam to
Chicago
to your destination after that. So you had the airplane, you landed in Amsterdam, you opened your eyes in the Western world. What's happened there?
Oh, I had the first experience in the Western world, and it was scary for me. And I'm going to share it with you.
Yes.
Since you asked me.
Yeah. Because I want to see your reaction for the first time seeing this Western world.
Yes, it was all new to me. But of course, I didn't speak and understand English very well.
All right.
I had my dictionaries.
Yeah, Farsi and English.
Farsi to English, and vice versa. And so I had some money, and I was learning English. I put sentence together and look up in the dictionary and find out what they mean. So I was at Amsterdam and I missed our flight.
Oh, you missed your flight. All right.
And the people from Iran who were going to Germany told me that they put you in a hotel and they come and pick you up in the morning and next tomorrow and you can go back and they put you on a plane to Chicago. So don't worry about it. We're going to be gone to Germany, but they take care of you. So I said, okay, that's fine. I was 20, young, and you excited to be in Amsterdam for the first time.
Covering the world.
Yes, covering the world. And so I decided I stayed there in the hotel, and it was an amazing place. But as a young man, you always want to go and
eat. You're hungry.
Yeah, eat and check things out. So I decided to take my dictionary, and I went to put some of the Iranian tuman. We call them toman, Iranian money, tuman.
Oh, okay.
It's bigger than rial.
All right.
But you put it in a little, look like a vending machine.
Equals to?
In the hotel.
How many dollars?
Well, at that time, $1 was 7 toman.
Wow.
Today is, I think, it's at least 1,000 or more.
Went down.
Yes. It's dollar is very expensive now.
So, Amsterdam.
And I went out, I took my dictionaries and I hit the streets of Amsterdam. Everybody was riding bikes, beautiful flowers. And I never seen so many older people on bicycles with so much energy, jogging and running the streets. But the only thing was, a bunch of them had these little dogs on the leash. And I think that was a little different for me because, as a Muslim, we grew up, the dogs were what we called najas. They were unclean. We wouldn't mess with dogs. But nevertheless, these people had quite a different attitude. And I wanted a restaurant, and I went to buy this little place. And now I know what it was. It was McDonald's.
Oh, all right.
I never seen a McDonald's before. But I went in to go in there, and I saw a lady sitting there with gray hair, very graceful. But yet she's holding a little dog on her lap and feeding it.
In the restaurant.
I thought, oh, haram. I said, oh, forbidden. I can't go in here with, with dogs in there. And besides, I thought, I don't know whether they have pork or not. So I decided to go somewhere so I can sit down. Maybe I can find somebody to help me to make sure I don't take pork.
Yeah.
Because I was very conscious of that. So I find this one beautiful, beautiful yacht that just designed beautifully with red carpet coming out from the shore it was sitting in, right on the side of a sidewalk. And I walked in there. I looked on top. It says restaurant and some other words, and I looked in my dictionary, and I saw restaurant. Oh, that's a place to eat.
You can eat. All right.
So I went in and I sat down. It was all velvet, curtains. The seats were just something else. They were just as good as your bed at home. You could just sit around. I thought, this is a fancy place. But just when I sat down and I was getting ready my dictionary, looking at the menu, and I thought, I don't understand. I was trying to get the word that I had the word pork in the dictionary, so I can show the waitress or waiter that I don't want this, no pork. And as soon as the person showed up, I looked up, and as I looked up, lo and behold, the waitress was topless.
Ooh.
And oh my goodness, I've never seen anything like that in my life. And all I could hear in my mind, my father telling me, don't become corrupted, son. Don't go over there and get into fornications and this kind of work. And I began to sweat. I grabbed my dictionaries, put it under my arm, and ran out of that place as fast as I could. Because I could just hear my father say, you haven't been out 24 hours. You're already becoming corrupted. So that was my first experience. And
now you took the plane, you landed in Amsterdam, you have your first experience with the Western world, the corrupt Western world. Then what's next?
Well, I finally made it to the United States.
Yes.
And fortunately, my father had a friend who had a son there, been there for a few years in Missouri. And he picked me up and he took me in and he said, we have arranged that you stay here and learn English for a while, and then you can take an ACT test and go to college and so forth.
So you went with Iranian friends when you arrived?
Iranian friends.
What state was that?
Missouri.
Missouri.
State of Missouri.
All right.
And so I went there and stayed with him for a couple of weeks, but then I told him, listen, I can't learn English living with you guys because everybody speaks Farsi. And he says, you're right, I'm sorry, we've been here a few years, but he said, I'll find you a family, an American family, who would let you stay at their place. Maybe you pay them some rent and room and board, and you can learn English firsthand. And that was a great idea. And he did, and it was just a short time after that, and that was my first family, the first family of Americans. And it was very, very interesting. We met with him, and the man of the house, he was a teacher at the school, and then, of course, the lady of the house was a secretary at a Southern Baptist church.
Wow.
All right. I didn't know what that was. I just knew it was a church.
First exposure.
Yes, first Christian I ever met in my life.
All right.
And then, of course, they had two children, one son about my age, one little girl. And I stayed with him in the basement, and I had my own quarters and everything. And I began to just course with them.
This is like a student exchange, or you're paying your own?
No, I'm paying my own.
Oh, so you're not coming with the government?
No.
All right.
No government. My father was supporting me.
Yes.
I had a 4-year visa as a student to be in the United States. So, and then they told me the first Sunday rolls over, and I remember I was praying Saturday night, and they interrupted me, and of course I got a little upset.
But in my background now, the revolution took place in Iran.
Yes, the revolution began when I came.
When you came, when the communication was cut between you and your father a lot, or you haven't communicated with him?
We still had communication at that time. It was off and on. It wasn't, I could call and we couldn't get through for a while. Letters would go and come.
All right.
There was no problem. Letters would go. But they were telling me that they're trying to keep away all the bad news, because they want him to continue. Because I told him, you want me to come back? I don't want you guys.
Yeah.
He said, no, everything's so far so good.
Oh, okay.
So he said, you go on, continue education.
Now you're in the Baptist family.
Now I'm in the Baptist family, and as I was praying, the lady came down and she interrupted me, and I tried to talk to her through my dictionaries, let her know that as a Muslim, when I'm praying, a lady cannot
interrupt,
cannot come even in front of me or around me. Please respect that. And so she asked me, would you like to go to church with us? And I've never thought about that. Then I thought, yes, that would be interesting. I was young, and I thought, I'm here to learn. I'm here to learn the language. I'm here to learn the culture. And it's good to go see what the Christians are like. Even though, you hear stories when you grow up. But still, when you're young, you're willing to, experience it yourself.
Yes. And
I remember thinking that, I know church, as I was thinking about. I've seen a church. And then their son asked me, he said, where you seen a church? In Iran? I said, no, we don't have any Christians in Iran. I never knew any. But I've seen a movie on TV called Little House on a Prairie. And in that there was a church and there was a priest and they had people in there, and so that's my memory of church.
All right.
So then of course he laughed at me and he said, you're in for a shock. So we went to church, and it was a huge church. There were several thousand people in there.
Wow.
It was, the steps just all the way to the huge door going in. It was nothing like what I saw on TV.
And prairie.
Yes. But I had my cultural shock. As we walked in, first thing I noticed, men and women were sitting together, and I wasn't quite ready for it.
So no.
The women should be out of here, sitting behind the other side, their own person. But it wasn't, and I said, well, these are different people.
Yeah.
And then they had me sit down, and next thing you know, they picked up their Bibles, and they handled them, and they start singing. Music started. That's another thing.
No.
Oh, no. I thought, man. But again, I told myself, hey, these are Christian people. They have the right to do what they want. I'm just making notes, mental note.
Yeah,
mental note. And then, of course, then they picked up the Bibles. I thought they were Bibles, but they were hymn books. But I didn't know the difference at the time. They looked like, when they sing, they thumb through them, they sing out of them and everything.
Yes.
And I wasn't going to anticipate anything. I was just there to watch. And then, of course, then the young man who I didn't know at the time, but in church we call them youth pastors. He tapped me on the shoulder, and he took the young man with my family and I, and he took us to a little chapel on the side. And it was in that room was all young people sitting. A whole bunch of them sitting on a chair, and he put me in the front of them, and I thought because I'm a guest. I'm thinking, because as an Iranian, when you have a guest in Iran, we want to make sure that we give him the best. That's right. The hospitality is important. So I thought, well, this is neat. He wants to introduce me. And this is an area that they've hardly ever seen any Middle Eastern. I think I must have been one of the first Muslims, at least Iranians, they've seen, because he was in the rather rural area, smaller community.
Yes.
And I sat there, and he took my dictionaries. And I explained to him that you can tell me what you want as long as you look at the English word and the Farsi is right in front of it. So he said, okay, get your pen and paper. I got it. He wanted to give me a message. So he works hard through it. And he gives him one word at a time.
Yeah.
And he reads, and he puts it together. As I write, and you are going to, and the last word, hell.
Woo!
And here I'm sitting in front of a whole bunch of the young people group. They're staring at me, not a word said from them. And he says that to me. And that's the first time I lost my cool. And I stood up, and I looked at him, and I said, Kafar, agar shamshiri dashtam sarato miboridam. I said, you telling a Muslim who came to your church and respected you, and respected the Isa al-Masih, Jesus Christ, that I'm going to hell? And I was just off. furious. And of course, he looked at me, and everybody, they figured I wasn't happy. But that was my first experience.
I'm going to stop here. What advice do we give to Christians when they are contacted by Muslims like you in that time? I mean, that wasn't wise.
Of course not.
Okay. So what are the steps that you could take to avoid these kind of things as Christians now, reaching to Muslims?
Of course, I understand that was 30 years ago, 30 plus years ago.
But it's still
And in a smaller community, there was a lot of ignorance of Islam and Muslim people. They just didn't know.
Okay.
However, for anyone who's not even Muslim, anyone who's not even Muslim, even from if you're Protestant, if a Catholic visits you, the rule is the same.
Yes.
Is that you respect the person as who they are. And first of all, I would do my homework to know what this person believes in. And based on that, I would decide how to communicate with him.
Even if it's not a Muslim, you're telling him go to hell, you're going to make him mad.
That's right. And of course, the first thing would be I would get to know him. And I would ask him questions. Don't put him in front of a whole congregation and embarrass him like that. However, he was young and zealous. We have to give him that.
So you have to have wisdom. You not expose people and embarrass them in front of the people. Right. Okay.
And I don't believe today you'll see that as often. I don't know.
I don't know.
It's been 30 years or so. So there's a lot of Muslims in this country now, and they've made some inroads. So people more aware of them being here.
So maybe you thought to yourself, I'm not coming to church anymore.
That's right.
So that's another point. We offend people, though we want them to come back, but then this time, said, okay, if this is Christianity, goodbye. Okay.
That was my first experience, and I didn't go after that. However, he must have thought, maybe he thought that's the only chance he's going to get.
Okay.
I don't know, but his approach, I would have fired him if I was a pastor of that church.
What you watch in this family's life that really ministered to you, it didn't minister to you, although she's a Baptist, or I don't know, Presbyterian or Baptist, but is there anything that ministered to you as a Muslim?
Oh, yes. That was the first family, and I watched them closely, and they watched me closely.
Oh, all right.
We were learning. I told them I do not want to go to church anymore. I told them what happened, and they weren't upset about it. I think they realized that what the mistake was done.
Yeah.
And they brought the man in to apologize to me later on.
All right.
But as your first expression, it was something to be desired.
Yeah.
However, what I learned from them, and we watched each other, and I sat with them at the dinner table.
Yes.
And of course, I told them I do not want pork. So if you have pork, I'm not asking you not to eat it yourself. But
not me.
That night, tell me so I would not, be near it. I don't want you to touch it. I don't want to, touch it. I eat something else. Just respect that. And they did. They respect that. And I noticed they were a very fun family.
Yes.
For each other. They done activities and all that. When I grew up, I played soccer almost religiously. But my father has never seen one of my games. But in this society, it was different. They got involved. I didn't expect my father. Our culture was different. He was working, but here he was different. They have teenagers.
Yes.
I wasn't used to, this age in between adolescence and adulthood called teenager.
Yes.
So they have quite a different approach to kids. So I watched that, but then I noticed something. I had my prayer done. I had my prayer rug. I had my prayer rock. And the only time I seen them pray, unless they did, unless I didn't see them other than that, but the only time I seen them was when they were at the dinner table.
Yes.
And even then, when they all sit down and the father would ask the son, would you pray, please? He would say to the father, he says, oh, I prayed last night, Dad. It's her turn. Pointing to his sister. And I remember thinking, if my grandfather, asked me to lead a prayer, I would have a heart attack, thinking I have spiritually arrived. Because as a young Muslim, we weren't considered so spiritual yet to pray in the presence of our elders who Muslim. But this was the cultural difference. So I noticed that, and that was not a good thing. When I looked at it, I thought that's Christians' prayer life. But they were faithful going to church. They went to church Wednesday nights, Sunday mornings.
But you never saw them reading the Bible or praying in their home.
No, they had the Bibles in the house,
Yeah,
but I didn't see them. No, I didn't see them praying. But they watched a lot of the what you call at that time HBO.
Wow.
It was fairly new, I guess, at that time. A lot of HBO, and I was learning all kinds of things from TV. You know, but that was our first experience, and of course, you always remember your first impression. I remember things from first year when I was in the United States more clearly than almost any other time. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
First impression is very important.
It's very vivid. How long you stayed with this family?
I was with them for just about 9 months.
All right.
I finished the school, learn English, finished high school. They sent me back to high school to learn English.
To learn English, yes.
So I got another degree.
If you're going to college, you have to understand English, of course.
So then I took an ACT test, and I received a scholarship to the university in another city in Missouri. And I went there, and that's the second part of my
So
experience.
this was the highlights of the first home that you stayed in.
This was the first.
Still, it's not impressive to witness to Muslims.
No.
No. So, wow. This is the second experience, the experience of the church, the experience of a home sitting. Now, next.
The next thing was I went to university, and I lived in a dorm for just a short time. But
Yes.
I wasn't impressed with it. There was too much drinking and playing games and young people just doing all kinds of things.
Noisy.
Noisy,
Yes.
partying. And I had a goal. I wanted to learn the language.
Yes.
And I wanted to finish this, And so I went ahead and it was very difficult to me to pray 5 times a day. It was so much interruptions in that.
Yes.
So I answered an ad in the paper. Some elderly lady was looking for someone to stay with him at the house for room and board. And I thought that would be a good opportunity for me to live in somebody. And as a Muslim, I respected elderly tremendously.
Wow, wow.
And I thought this would be very, very good for me. I
Actually,
can
this is
learn.
a Middle Eastern culture. We have to respect the old people, yes.
Oh, yes, we always do.
Yes.
So I went to her house, and she answered the door. Just wonderful lady, all white hair. And I told her, I'm answering this ad. And I remember she said to me, she says, well, I was meaning a female college student. I didn't quite understand the female part. I just a college student, and I went to her house.
You left the female aside.
Yes, yes. So, but she looked at me and she says, come on in, come on in. And she noticed I spoke with broken English.
Yes.
And she said, I think I'm going to give you a try. I think you could use my help. I'm a retired English teacher. And she says, I think you can help me out. My husband died last year. I could use a man around to, help me with things, and you can use me teaching you English.
Yeah, okay.
So I said, thank God.
Good deal.
Yes, good deal. Good deal for me and good deal for her. So that was my second family. And she was very moral person. She lived, and she was very
It's better
active.
than the other family.
Yes, as a 73 years old, she was very active. Walked 4 miles a day. That was amazing to me.
Wow.
I used to write home in letters, Mom, you won't believe this lady I'm staying with, my landlord. She walks 4 miles a day, and she's 73 years old.
Wow.
So, anyway, but nevertheless, she taught me English very well. And however, one day she asked me, listen, I don't want to intrude, but would you like to go to church with me? And I remember my hair back on my neck stood up a little bit, and I began to get a little memory of that, and I asked her one question. I said, what denomination do you go to? And she says, I'm a Presbyterian. I thought, whew, I don't know what Presbyterian is, but it's not Southern Baptist. But now I want to make sure that our Southern Baptist friends out there know that I love them.
Yeah.
And I have many good friends who've been there for me through years.
Yes.
For Southern Baptist now. But that was just one experience. And just please don't get offended. I'm just telling you my story.
Yes.
Yes. But I have friends from many different denominations. And so as long as they're in Christ, we're in love with one another. So anyway, I went to the church with her. It was a huge church, and it was not like the first one. They were more reserved.
All right. I'm going to stop here and let David come in and see if... David, are you with us? David?
Yes.
Are you following what he's saying?
Yes.
Are you following what when he visited the first house and his first exposure to the church?
Yeah.
What's your comment? We as Christians. Yes.
Yeah, I'll just comment that this is a lot of people's experience with Christianity, whether it's the first experience or not. And even our children grow up in an environment where Christ is not really the center of the household. The TV might be the center of the household. But I do find it interesting that when he went to church and they told him he was going to hell, I certainly don't approve of walking up to to a Muslim and saying, "Hey, you're going to hell." Or
anybody in the street you meet him.
I do find it interesting that I would expect Muslims to agree with that, because that is what the Quran says. In other words, if a Muslim knows the Quran, Surah 19 verse 71 says that everyone's going to enter into hell, and then Allah is going to take the good people out. He's going to take the good Muslims out of hell after they've gone there. And even Muhammad says in the very next verse that he doesn't know what Allah is going to do to him. And I always found it interesting, because I would expect Muslims to say, "Of course I'm going to hell. We're all going to hell. What's your point?" But that's not the reaction. It's what are you saying to me? You kafir. It's kind of interesting.
Yes.
Yes.
Comment on that?
The reason is it was put in a context, in a way, and when he said you're going to hell, I understood. For some reason, I realized he's talking about eternally, forever.
Okay, yeah. So I agree. If I were a Muslim, even if I agreed with the Quran, and I see a Christian come up to me and tell me I'm going somewhere, I'm gonna have a problem with that Christian.
To tell you the truth, growing up Muslim, and I admit it now, I consider us, if it was a food chain of religion, I would consider Islam on top of that chain. And I thought Christians are second level. So talking to me in that manner, he was really disrespect, and I was offended because he spoke to me in a manner that wasn't worthy, because he was a little lower level than I was as a Muslim.
Yes.
So.
Any other comments?
Oh no, let's go. Let's finish up.
All right. So you are in the second home, the good lady, she walks 4 miles a day. And what the exposure of Christianity in this house now?
Now, she was not into TV. She was older generation, but she was into social Christianity. She got together with people at church, mostly elderlies, and they had a bridge club, ice cream club,
Do they play
cakes
bingo?
and pies, yes. And I entered often to every one of them, and I loved it, eating and learning all the sweets.
What do you love in the
food.
American food?
Oh yeah, cheesecake.
A cheesecake, all right.
I never had cheesecake before until they introduced it to me.
All right.
Just the idea of cheese and sweet.
Did you question yourself, has pork in it?
I used to ask all the time. Every time they fixed something, I would say, "Is that pork in it?" And you got to a point that everybody was laughing at me. They said, "We know what you're going to ask." No, or yes. So, but she was more social. She was very strongly moral person. But again, I never saw her reading the Bible or studying it, and I gathered that she was not a practicing Christian as I was a practicing Islam, because I still continue my prayers, but I thought, well, I can influence her for Islam. She's a good woman. She's a good lady. She's a grandmother. She's a mother. Maybe I can win her to Islam.
Yes.
But she was very fun-loving, and she used to say, "I'm an Irish. I'm just a fun-loving girl." So I did go to church with her, and in her church, no one told me I was going to hell or questioned anything of any
talk to you about Christ even?
No Christ.
No evangelism?
No, I went to the socials, church socials.
All right.
As a matter of fact, I got used to them. They had a routine in their church. They got there, sang 3 songs, sit down, sang 2 songs, then sit down again, and then the preacher preached something. It was way over my head.
All right.
I tell you that. I couldn't understand a lot of them. But every now and then I would go with them. But it was mostly for social. And I enjoyed it because I learned a lot about the culture of American people and their food and their history. Because, elderly have a way of talking about past, and you get to learn some things you didn't know.
I'm going to stop here and get a break and come back again.
Absolutely.
I'm going to continue with the second home and what's your experiences in this. Then I'll go to David and come back to you.
Sure. As I mentioned, I was living very comfortably there, and I didn't have a whole lot of problems. I was learning English. I was going to school, and I really didn't have anybody approaching me as far as Christianity or Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but there's something happened at that era that changed a lot of things for me and for Iranians in the United States, and that was this hostage crisis.
Mm-hmm.
In 1979 actually.
Mm-hmm.
Hostage crisis took place, as you remember. Iranian militants took American embassy hostage, and it was a very dark time for Iranians in the United States of America. They practically were underground. We were trying to hide because many people were after us to harm us who didn't understand what's going on. They looked at us when they saw Iranians on TV burning American flags and spitting on it, stomping on it, and saying death to America. They looked at us as we are students, and we're just like them.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a lot of threats, and people were, some of the people who want us to go back, and the government tried to deport all of us, and they did deport many. So at that time, I kind of drew together with some Iranian friends who knew at university. And usually in a time of dilemma in your life, you like to pull together with those who are like-minded.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I did. And so I didn't really hang around church.
So you left this house that you're living in? Or
no, I was still living there.
Oh, right.
But I didn't go to church, because even at the church there were some people who didn't want to shake my hand anymore, and
wow.
they would call me towelhead and stuff like that. They didn't understand, but I thought, well, I'm not going there. So I stayed away from it. And then shortly after that, as I was still trying to cope with the attitude of people in America, not everybody, there were some people who were understanding, but the attitude was very hostile. And shortly after that, the war between Iran and Iraq started. So all of that at the same time, and that is when I lost a lot of communication with my family, because they were living to the southern part of Iran, and as you remember, Saddam Hussein had his troop move in to the southern part of Iran, and so my family, the house was bombed, and they had to flee to the northern part of Iran. So we lost communication, and therefore I lost my finances. And as a student, full-time student, I was not allowed to work. Therefore, I had to have a job permit. So I remember I wanted to kind of write a letter home, and I wrote a letter home and tried to be funny. Back then this was popular. I said that to my father. I said, "No man, no fun, your son." And the story is he writes back and he says, "Too bad, so sad, your dad." Because that was the story. He couldn't get me any money.
All right. David, do you have any comments or any questions, any thoughts about what he's...
I have a quick question about, because I was only 4 years old when there was this the hostage crisis and so on, and the war. Was there a negative attitude towards people in the Middle East at large? In other words, most Americans wouldn't know the difference between someone from Iran, someone from Iraq, or even from Saudi Arabia. Most people wouldn't be able to tell the difference. So was there an anger specifically towards people from Iran, or did people during this time just get mad at anyone from the Middle East area?
At the beginning, they didn't know the difference between Iranian or Iraqi or Egyptians. But then on TV, 24/7, it was Iran, Iran, Iran. And after a while, the people began to focus and understand it's Iranians that are the enemy. So, yes, at the beginning we were kind of safe. But I remember one incident that was the first time I drove on the snow, and I got in a ditch. And this couple of guys stopped by to help me out. It was in a truck. And the back of the pickup truck in Iraq was a shotgun. And when I saw that, I was sitting in my car in the ditch, and they came on top, and he hollered at me. He said, "You need help?" I looked back, I said, "Yes." And he saw me, what I looked. And they've seen Iranians on TV. And he says, "Where are you from, boy?" And I remember I looked up, and I said, "Egypt." And he said, "Well, you guys are okay." He helped me out. The reason was because I knew the way he was asking me, that he wanted to know if I was Iranian or not, and I thought I probably going to die there, in the ditch. So while Iranians were focused and it was kind of singled out, there were some Iranian students who were actually killed. They were thrown off bridges, especially in Georgia and down south. So focus became Iranian people. Somehow people picked out, they knew the difference, especially in a smaller community that weren't too many of us around.
Any other comments?
No.
All right. So you're still in the house of this lady. I want to move quickly because our time is running.
Yes, we have to move quick.
Yes.
So I went ahead and started working.
Yes.
And I worked at a nursing home. That was a shock itself. At that time, we didn't have any nursing homes. But nevertheless, I met this one lady who was elder, and we call her the laundry lady. I don't know her name to this day. But the laundry lady was one of the first people who came to me. And she said, I'm a Christian. I've seen how people hate you Iranians. Can I pray for you?
Wow. Wow.
I was thrown off. And the main reason I got thrown off was I've never had any Christian tell me they're going to pray for me. But here she was a woman. And, you know, in the culture in the Middle East, I want to be honest, women were treated as second-class citizens. But more than that, she had one leg. She has a prosthesis on the other leg. So she was handicapped. And as you know, in the Middle East, you know, handicaps, when I grew up, they were considered rather cursed. They put them away. They were embarrassed of them. So here I'm looking at this woman who's a handicap. She's the first one who reaches out and says to me with compassion, I'm going to pray for you. Is there anything I can do for you? Is your family okay?
Wow.
And I thought, I didn't know what to say to her. I just said, thank you. And then she would sit in a break room and ask me about my family. And she talked to me about, you know, my faith. You know, she wasn't aware of Islam in any fashion, but she was showing interest. She showed interest. And she told me, you know, I went to church and I asked the pastor and the congregation to pray for you and your family.
Wow.
And that was the first time.
Opening the door now, slowly. All right.
Yes, yes. So I'm going to continue here. Shortly after, I met at work, I met a nurse. And I was very attracted to her. She was American, and I rather charmed her. I put on the good old Eastern man's charm. And so I met her family, and of course I couldn't communicate with my family very well. Every now and then I wrote them and told them I met this young lady and I really like her, and we started dating. I wasn't used to dating, but you know, courtship is nothing foreign to Iranians. You know, we do that, but usually in a different setting. But you know, I was on my own now, so I started seeing her, and then I met her mom and dad, and they were very devout Christians. They were very good people, and I thought, okay, you know, I really like her, I love her now, and I want to marry her. And so I asked her, and she said yes. She grew up in church.
Wow.
She was a Christian girl, and to make a long story short, we got married. We did not get married in church. I would not get married in church. I was a Muslim. So she agreed, that's fine. And we went to the courthouse, and then we went ahead and got married. And that evening, when we got home, I remember I told her, well, honey, now you know that you are a Muslim now.
Wow, okay.
And for some reason, that didn't go over very big with her. And however, you see, she told me later on that I was very intrigued with you because, first of all, your manners. Second of all, you have faith. You pray more than anybody I know. And you don't cuss, you don't drink, you don't smoke. Everything that, and you love families and you respect the elderlies. Everything that my father has told me I need to look for in a man, I found in you. So I did not look as you being a Muslim as any problem or obstacle.
Yes.
And that's one of the main reasons many Muslim and Christian get married. Because if you're a good Muslim, Christians would see that same qualities that, and
they're attracted to it.
Attracted to it, of course. And the same reason I was attracted to her. She had the qualities that I was looking for in a family, very close family. They had the grandmother living with them, and they took care. And the father was a wonderful, wonderful, faithful man. And he's the main reason I came to Christ.
Wow, wow. How?
So, well, they retired to close area that we were.
And of course, you told your wife if we have kids, they are.
Oh yes,
You told her they're Muslims.
Yes.
All right.
And they came and moved to the area. He was building a retirement home right on the lake.
That's her dad.
Yes, her mom and dad.
Your father-in-law. All right.
Yes, and he was a master electrician. He had his own business building.
Mm-hmm.
So now he was building his own retirement home, and a very bright man. And he lived with the grandma lived with them.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I visited them when they were renting a house while they were building one.
Mm-hmm.
And I was downstairs and early in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
I woke up and I went to go to wash up to get ready for
Your
prayer.
prayers, yeah, okay.
And I hear loud noise upstairs. It was before the sun came in. And I come up and I see them, all three of them,
Mm-hmm.
mom, dad, and grandma, holding hands and praying loud.
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard Christians at home pray loud.
Mm-hmm.
And they were praying with passion. They were praying for everybody and everything. They had a list.
Mm.
And they were praying for even people's dogs
Mm-hmm.
who were sick or animals. And it was really eye-opening for me.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't know I was watching them. But then I found out later on that they've been doing this for 30 or 40 years. This is a norm with them. They wake up early in the morning before he goes to work, and they have a devotion time, prayer.
David has a comment to
Muslim,
say.
did you pray for everyone?
As a Muslim, I'm sorry.
Did you pray for everyone as a Muslim?
I can't say I did.
So as a Muslim, you wouldn't pray for everyone to get along and love each other and have good lives?
We pray for peace as long as it's peace in Islam.
Mm-hmm.
I was not taught to pray unless somebody calls specifically and says, I'm sick and we need prayer, and we call that, the prayer, we call that dua. It's a different kind of prayer as reciting Quran. And those things are done, but to tell you the truth, to pray every time or all the time for peace, people get along, no.
Now,
I was reciting Quran.
One quick question about marrying, as a Muslim, marrying a non-Muslim woman. What would your reaction have been if a Muslim woman had married a non-Muslim man?
Haram. That's not allowed, because when a woman marries a man who's non-Muslim, she is to lean to his faith. However, there was an Iranian girl who did marry a man who was not Muslim, but he chose later on to become a Muslim. But I remember very well, we literally excommunicated her, and I would not ever suggest it. However, we were encouraged to marry good non-Muslim women and convert them to Islam, and then our children would be Muslims, and that would add to Islam. It was not something that we were forbidden to do.
Now, this woman that you just spoke of, was this in Iran or was this here in the United States?
No, in the United States. Yeah, it was in the United States.
You mentioned a woman who married a non-Muslim man. And you said you excommunicated her. Was this in Iran or the United States?
It was in the United States. She went to school with, the group of Iranians. She went to school with us, and she chose to marry an American man, non-Muslim.
Something else you have something else to add or to ask?
No. I just wanted to clarify that.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
So I continue. I began to watch my father-in-law and mother-in-law and the family, because it was new to me, the way they approached. And he was a very hard-working man, and he would build his house. And I remember watching him read the Bible chapters after chapters. And then on Sundays, he did not work. He went to church. And then he took a Sunday afternoon nap, and then he went to Sunday night church. And I remember, thinking, this is a good, faithful family. I'm going to have a harder time getting him to Islam because they're very faithful to Christ and Christianity. However, I consider my wife to be a Muslim, and I did not allow her to go to church. And then shortly after that, we had our first son. And when that happened, things even escalated more. I became very possessive. I want to make sure that my son was Muslim. As soon as he was born, before they cut his umbilical cord, I ran to him and I whispered in his ears, verses from Quran, because I want to be Muslim. So then I began to teach my wife about Islam, talking to her about it, and she was resistful to it. And she wasn't aware of how it was to be married to a Muslim. And so we started to have some problems at that time. However, she wanted to keep peace because I was very, very strong-willed about it. And so she would not talk about it, and she would not bring it up. And she would pretty much, allow me to do what I want. And she just didn't anticipate, but she didn't go to church either. And I know, her mom and dad were praying for me all the time. And I would walk in, and Grandma would say, "Oh, Jesus, please save him. We just love him." Loud, just like that.
We're going to take a break and come back. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to go quickly to the turning point in your life. How do you meet Christ?
Turning point. Now, I've experienced some miracles of healings by watching my father-in-law.
Yes.
He was healed many times. He fell off the building. His back was gone. And they laid hand on him. I never seen that either. And the family laid hand on him, and he got healed the next day.
Yes.
And then, of course, several other times of his eyes and other things, I've seen literal physical healings in his body. And I was drawn to him as a Muslim. I thought, this man is very close to God. And so I'm going to stick close to him because God really favors him. He gets healed every time he has a problem. But the final nail to the coffin was the fact that I was challenged by someone who did talk to me about Christianity, as David mentioned. I was challenged to show him through the Bible how Bible is changed and he was corrupted. So I wanted to prove to him that Jesus was never said he was son of a God. He wasn't crucified, therefore not resurrected. So I started reading the Bible. I would read it in quietness. I wouldn't let my wife know. I didn't want her to think that I was leaning toward Christianity. So as I started reading the Bible, something happened. I realized that I've never heard words of Jesus. I knew he walked on the water. I knew he healed the sick. I knew he raised the dead. That was no news to me. I know he was virgin born. Quran already teach me that. But I didn't heard his words.
I need to know that the miracle also that happened to your father-in-law when his hammer, he was...
Oh, the miracle of the floating hammer.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
He was helping, ministering to a next-door neighbor of his who was elderly and was lost. And Dad was witnessing to him. As a result, he was building him a little pond, on his little pond, little deck. And did a frog pond. And a man was sitting there, very foul-mouthed man. He was about 80 years old, very rich man, but he was very foul-mouthed, very negative toward the church and any other religion. And as Dad was sitting there, I was helping him. He was hammering. And he had this hammer that he's built 11 houses with. He was a builder. And the hammer flew out of his hand and went to that water, into the big pond. And the old gentleman sitting there, Mr. Green, he said, "Oh, Pete, kiss that hammer goodbye." And he cursed and went on. And that's the first time I've seen him stressed. He stood up, he said, "Oh, Lord, that was my favorite hammer." And he said, "I don't know how to build this thing without that hammer." And right then, I was standing with him, the bubble formed on top of the water. I thought it was frogs. And then the hammer floats, hammerhead first. And then Pete gets excited, reached out, and he says, "Thank you, Jesus." And the hammer floated 2 feet, about 2 feet to his hand. And he picked it up, and he put it on his little side as if it was just a normal thing happening.
Wow.
Mr. Green over there was about to have a heart attack. He said, "I've never seen anything like that in my life." And I said, "Dad, this is a miracle." And there's that hammer. He passed on, but he gave me the hammer. Right here is that hammer. And we put it in here because I shared this with a lot of people. This hammer really puzzled me. How Jesus Christ answers the prayer about a hammer. Because he was so in love with Jesus. And I realized Jesus looks at him as special, and he gives him that favor. And but I was challenged to read, and Mr. Green, a year later, died of cancer, but he gave his heart to God, to Christ.
Wow.
Because of this hammer, and that witness in that. So then I began to read, and started with the book of John. And I started reading. I asked God just 3 basic questions. I wanted to prove, who is Jesus? Is he really Son of God? And then as I just read that, I was in John chapter 3. And just seconds later, I come to John 3:16. And John 3:16 says, God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. And I got scared. For the first time I realized, when I asked God a question, he answered me. I've read Quran many times in my life, but I never had it answer me in that manner, right away. So I got very drawn to it. I was just mesmerized by the words of Jesus, and the authority that he spoke. And I knew I wasn't supposed to believe that. It was supposed to be all changed. But something was pulling me to it. And then I would go to bed, and I would wake up with horrible nightmares. Horrible nightmares. And a voice would tell me in my head, not an audible voice, but in my head I would hear, shame on you. Your family is Muslim. Your grandfather, you promised to your dad. You're going to turn away from Islam? And I would get scared, and I wouldn't put the Bible down. And then just an hour later, small steel voice just drawing me to it. Just read me for yourself. Just pick me up. And I was drawn to it. And I pick it up, and I read again, and I ask again. And by then I was just really confused. I knew there was something wrong when I read that Mary, mother of Jesus, we call in Islam, consider her a prophet, as a Shia, was at the foot of a cross and was crying for this man who we were taught it was Barabbas. And I'm thinking, Persian proverb says, you may be destroyed and your body is burnt beyond recognition, but your mother will always recognize you, your child. That's a Proverbs in Persian. And here she was. And I thought, could it be that Mary didn't know that was Jesus? She's crying to her son. And I realized something was not right. And I thought, somebody is lying to me somewhere. And that first seed of doubt was placed in my heart. From then on, I wanted to know more. And I asked God again. I asked God, just plainly, say, God, I know that I'm not supposed to believe this, but I need to know the truth. I'm 30 years old, and I thought I had it figured out. I thought I knew who to serve. I thought I knew who Allah was. But I'm confused, and I want to know. What should I do? And I want to know the truth. And right there, I'm on 8th chapter of the book of John. I believe come to verse 32, seconds later, and I read, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." And I was afraid again, because God met me there. God of Islam is way out there. I cannot touch him. He won't speak to me. I'm not good enough. But yet, through this Bible, I feel like God is speaking to me.
Yes.
And finally, to last verse. This went on for months.
Yes.
I'm just early in the morning, winter time, and I'm reading the Bible. This voice is trying to take me away from it, and it's giving me shame and guilt. And then there's other voice that tells me, read on. Find out for yourself. And here I read, and I said to God, I want to know which way I need to go. I know that as a Muslim, I cannot believe Jesus Christ died on a cross and he was Son of God. Because if I believe that, I'm no longer a Muslim. There's a clear line there. There's no writing on the fence. So I want to know, which way do I go? And that's when I was reading the 14th chapter of John. And I come to verse 6, again, seconds later. And 14:6, the book of John says, very famous, very familiar. Jesus says, I am the life, I am the truth. And he says, no man comes to the Father but through me. And that's my verse. I am the way, I am the truth and the life. No man cometh to the Father but through me. I wept. At that second, I realized for the first time in my life, really I had fear that if I died, I will be in hell, eternity. I feared God more than ever before because I have not believed in that until now. And that's when I just wept, because I knew my heart believes it. I was afraid for my mind to come around, because my family's face was in front of me. My entire culture was in front of me, in my face. But I knew I believed it, and I could not be a Muslim any longer, believing that. I knew that. So the next morning was Sunday, and I got up, and I told my wife we're going to church.
Wow.
And I had to call the ambulance because she was about to pass out. I'm just joking. I didn't call the ambulance. But she was so excited, and that's when I went to church with her. And then when the message came, I hear everything. My ears could hear every little word. Somehow I was open. I was open to understand. And then the minister says, anybody who wants to receive Christ today as a Savior, come forward. My heart began to beat 90 miles an hour. I didn't know whether I should or not. But I found myself floating to the front. And I was weeping. I was afraid. But yet I had this joy that I knew I was doing the right thing. I knew I believed in Him. And I had to confess it. And that's when they prayed for me, and I confessed, and I was born again. And that was December 31st, 1989.
Wow, wow. Congratulations.